From Mothman and Nessie to the spirit that haunts your home, welcome to Bob After Dark, a podcast about legends, lore, and the supernatural. So turn your lights down and your volume up and enjoy your trip to the shadows.
Hey there, children of the night, and welcome to Bob After Dark, the show that takes you into the shadows and goes and says hello, everything that goes bump in the night. I'm your host with the most that enjoys toast, Bob, and alongside of me, as always, is my ever wonderful, ever vampiric, ever cape-wearing, and forever the heartthrob of Bob After Dark, my friend, my producer, my brother, Count Panic himself. Oh, hey there, Count Panic.
Oh, hey, Bob. Yes, back. Do not adjust your radio. We're back here for another episode, Bob, of Bob After Dark.
We haven't been here in a couple weeks.
No, well, you're making towns.
Busy as could be. And sports ball moved us around. But let's go to the Count Panic update. What have you been up to?
Bob, just getting out and about, enjoying the summer solstice, Bob.
It's the
today,
summer solstice.
As we record this, officially the summer solstice.
Yes.
The veil
is not thin.
No?
No.
What is that? Where's that right now?
It's the two, man.
Oh.
You have, okay. You have Samhain, which is when the Halloween time, which is when the veil's thinnest.
Yeah.
You have Yule time, which veil's thin there too. The spring equinox is also thin, but it's like a cycle, man.
Yeah. Okay.
The summer solstice isn't one of them veil thinning holidays. You know what I mean?
Well, never mind then about that, Bob. But summer solstice has begun. I know you're not it's been hot here.
Oh, it is miserable.
I know you're not the big hot heat guy, but kind of just getting into that summer mode, basically. Us vampires, we use a lot of sunblock, right? Actually, we shouldn't be out in the sun whatsoever.
No.
So it's extra important for people like me, vampires like me, to wear that sunblock, Bob, in the summertime and get it all lathered up. But other than that, I've been keeping cool, Bob. Been keeping cool.
That's great.
How about you?
Oh, man, I've been busy. So part of my life now is traveling to conventions, sometimes for Bob After Dark appearances, sometimes not. I was for the past couple of weeks, where have I been?
You've been everywhere.
I've been everywhere.
Johnny Cash song.
Something like that. Let's just start with, I was in Lubbock, Texas. Last 2 weeks ago, I guess. So the first week we were off, I was going to come back and we were going to do Lubbock, but it just didn't pan out.
Texas.
Texas. And got home real late on Monday, and it was just it was not going to happen. And then, so I was down there for Anime Lubbock. And then this past weekend, I was in Anime Ohio in Cincinnati, right outside Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then for this upcoming weekend, Bob After Dark's got like 4 appearances.
4 appearances, Bob.
4 appearances. I'm going to be at NeonCon.
NeonCon. Okay.
That is in Columbus, right outside Cleveland, Ohio.
Don't go to Columbus.
Don't go to Columbus for OhioCon. You're there way early or way late, depending on which way you want to look at it. So no, you're there. You're going to be there at the wrong time of year. So I'll be in Cleveland for NeonCon. And I have 4 panels that weekend. I'm running the video game creepypasta panel. I'm running the Paranormal and You, where I'm going to be talking about haunted Cleveland stories. What else am I doing? The Yokai and You panel, that's like the big one of the night. And then the other one I'm going to be running with Sarge Pepper, the paneling director, how to run a panel.
Which is needed. I mean...
Yes.
If you're planning to do a panel, you should know how to do a panel.
Yes, so I will be at NeonCon. Yes, I'll be at NeonCon.
Okay.
Yes.
Not too far from here, Ohio.
And let me tell you something, man. Ohio is not only for lovers, for the 3 people that got that joke. I think a little bit more than 3 people.
3 people, yeah.
Did you get the joke?
I got the joke.
Okay, so anyway,
On t-shirt.
Ohio is not only just for lovers, but the paranormal community at large too. I wore I wear usually when I do the convention scene and I travel, I always wear like a cryptid shirt or a paranormal shirt, just because that's who I am, and it's a cool way for the people that know, and then it's an easy way to network. And the first night I was there, because it was only a 2-day show this past weekend, I wore a Public Monster shirt, and there were several people that got it, which was pretty exciting. And then I did the next day a Mothman shirt, and I will tell you, there is maybe outside of West Virginia, Mothman is not bigger anywhere in the world than Ohio.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people came up to me like, "Oh, Ohio." I even met the artist from the Small Town Monsters, the documentary series I was in with Seth and Heather. They did I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she did the art for the Jersey Devil episode, like movie series that they did on the Jersey Devil. And it was just very funny how, like, the paranormal kind of wraps everything up, and you could kind of just bump into whoever you want in the paranormal world in Ohio. So, that's my new state. Sorry, Wisconsin.
Oh, no, you can't.
Nah, I can't say that because I have an appearance in the end of at the end of July. I will be at KitsuneCon.
There.
Details to follow.
You know, it's every time you go to a different state, be like, "This is my favorite state." Whenever you're just there, like like wrestlers, they're like, "This is the best state to be in."
This is the best state to be in.
Until the next state when I'm there.
And it's like, man, I really Wisconsin's like home though. That's been the Bob After Dark like second home for years.
Yeah.
Like many years we've had that. Was our like first big appearances were in Wisconsin, so I can't say that. But Ohio is close second, man. We have a lot of fans in Ohio, and it's really cool and exciting to have that.
Yeah. Ohio, again, all part of the Midwest atmosphere, Ohio, Wisconsin. No matter what state you like, the Midwest, treasure it. It's a beautiful area.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then, but folks, I do apologize for the couple-week delay. Lubbock, Texas, coming home from that. We couldn't find time to reschedule it, and I was just dead. I was in the car for something like 18 hours. I was tired. There was no way. And then last week we were all prepped and ready to go, and unfortunately life kind of happened with sports ball.
Yeah, we had some a game going on there.
Yeah, so it's all right, and things happen. We move things around. Got to be a little better about posting on social media, which is my big to-do list thing, is to get the post better.
Bob After Dark needs interns, I think.
Look, I've said it before. I would hire if there is a social media student in the world who is looking for college credit, like, I will write whatever you need to your college professor so you can get credit for the internship. I'll write you a letter of recommendation if you know what you're doing, but I would love a social media intern.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a fact.
Think of it. You get hired you'll get hired right out of there. You say you're Bob After Dark intern.
I've had people always ask me like, "Oh, you got a team, right?" It's like, no. I have how it works. It starts with me and you.
Yeah.
You produce the show, so you make sure that everything sounds good. You're the sound engineer.
Yeah.
You make sure that the technology side of thing is running.
We're on the air.
And then I run the research, the editing, social media, which we share social media, which, happens. And then I do most of the public appearances because you're just too busy to do it yourself.
Busy guy.
So we are a 2-person operation for the entirety of Bob After Dark. So if anybody out there is a social media student and they're like, wow, I really want to get involved, reach out to me, Bob at bobafterdark.com. It'll be an unpaid internship, but an internship nonetheless.
It's learning, right?
And you won't be getting me coffee, which is a big plus.
We've all had unpaid internships before. It's about the skill.
I have not. Every internship I did in college was paid.
Wow. How about that?
I got very lucky.
You haggled.
No, I got very lucky. I worked as when I got out of college, just a little off topic, and we'll get back to it. But I worked in the TV world. Yeah. And some of those gigs were paid but not paid at the same time because you made nothing as a PA sometimes. So I did those, but my actual internships, I was paid for an internship.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. And now look at me. I'm a paranormal talk show host for a living.
There's a full circle.
we have a very special thing going on tonight, but let's talk a little bit about what Bob After Dark is first, as if this is your first time ever watching or listening to an episode of the show. We are your weekly-ish paranormal show where we talk about legends, lore, and supernatural, things that go bump in the night, lights in the sky, weird cryptid stories, and, of course, Count Panic's favorite type of milk.
Oh, man. We might have been over this, Bob. I think...
I improv these, and I don't have them written down when I'm like...
I think we talked about... It was a chocolate milk discussion, I remember.
Maybe we talked about chocolate milk, but I never asked you what your favorite kind of milk was. So let's...
We'll do chocolate. We'll say chocolate.
Okay, chocolate milk.
For a treat.
Typically, we break the show up into a couple parts. We talk about the weird, spooky news stories of the week, and then we move into the lore of the week, which is, where we talk a little bit about whatever specific topic of lore, and it's broken up into two parts. And then occasionally, we get very lucky. We get a really cool guest where they're able to take up the entirety of the show. Found him via TikTok. TikTok, of all things.
Well, Bob After Dark's on TikTok.
You can follow me on TikTok at Bob After Dark. Without further ado, Count Panic, I'll let you introduce who we have on the horn right now.
Yeah, I believe we got him up and running on the old Zoom right now. Zooming in. Bishop James Long. Bishop, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Hey, Bob, how about that? The power of Zoom works once again.
The power of Zoom is a never-ending fun cycle for us, as we always... Sometimes we have to call upon guests from all over the world, realistically, and it's really great that the power of Zoom can bring us all together. Hello, Bishop. It's really nice to have you on the show.
Well, it's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big fan of yours. I watch all of your TikTok lives. And I decided to take a look at your website, and I saw that you do interviews and stuff. So I made my producer get on it, and I said, we've interviewed several people over the time that are people of the cloth in different aspects, and I was like, this one, we need to get Bishop James Long on the show. So thank you so much for taking the time out to come here. I'm super excited to have you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Appreciate you being here.
Yes.
Good.
So, Bishop, do you prefer Bishop, Father? What's the proper title you would like to be called? Because I want to make sure that you're dressed the way you're supposed to be.
Yeah, Bishop Long's fine.
Bishop Long? Okay. Yep. So, Bishop, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, boy, that's a...
Long walks on the beach. Do you prefer chocolate milk or white milk?
Yeah, I don't drink milk. Sorry, guys. No, not a drink milk. But... Actually, I'm a water guy. Literally, this is what the lemonade water. That's what I drink.
That's fair.
Pretty much it. I knew I wanted to be a priest when I was 5. I remember telling my mom, I was looking at the priest, and I said, I want to do what he does. And I remember picking up my books, the first book on demonology when I was 9, and I became obsessed. It was extreme OCD. I couldn't put them down. And I would read through them, and I had to get another one. And I basically practically lived in the library. When I got off the bus, I went right to the library and trying to find out more books. And it was a small little branch library, so they had to get more books from the main branch. And this was the old days, the card catalog days, not the computer days. But I just that's what I did. And I read and read, and my passion for the ministry continued to grow. So I became an altar boy, and absolutely fell in love with the Mass and with Catholicism. Of course, I was raised Roman Catholic. I went to a Roman Catholic private school and then decided I could have gone to the seminary after high school, but I thought I need to learn a little bit about life. What's it like to worry about paying bills? What's it like to worry about paying rent or mortgage, or just what's it like to worry about it? I needed to grow up a little bit and experience life before I start telling other people how to live their life. And so I did. And then that's when after about a little while, I said, it's time to go to seminary. So I enrolled with the Benedictines, studied with the Benedictines. And then I went to Loyola University in Chicago, graduated from Loyola, studied with the Jesuits, and then went to graduate school. But it was actually during the time when I was studying the Roman seminary that I really began to think, well, maybe God is calling me to serve elsewhere other than the Roman Catholic Church, because I wanted to be able to minister to everyone, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religious affiliation. To me, I wanted to be able to minister to every single person who came to me in need. That was a deep desire that I had. And so through spiritual direction, I decided to join the Old Catholic Church, but it's a bit different. We are allowed to marry. We do ordain women. We do not get paid as clergy. We fund our own ministry. We are not given a church. You do a ministry, you start your ministry, you fund your own ministry. And I've been in the paranormal for 35 years. And, many years ago, the way the paranormal community communicated was through Yahoo groups. That's how we spoke to one another. We didn't have Facebook and YouTube and all that other stuff. It was strictly Yahoo groups. And so there was no clergy. There was no Catholic clergy helping the paranormal community. There was none, absolutely none. And so my friends who were in the paranormal kept saying, James, we need clergy to help. We need you. We need you to help. You're clergy. We're asking you to help. So that's when I went public with my ministry about 20 years ago. And I was the first Catholic clergy to go public and actually help the paranormal community. And then it just exploded from there, from all the History Channel and Travel Channel and Ghost Adventures. And it just kind of went crazy because that was so unique. There was no one doing it. And finally, clergy was publicly talking about the paranormal. And that was necessary. It was very much needed in the paranormal at that time.
Right.
It still is.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your early days, and we're going to move on, and we'll definitely talk about your ghost adventures, no pun intended. So you said you started off in demonology, which is interesting. Count and I talk about demonology a lot on the show, and a lot of people call themselves demonologists, but I don't think they understand what a demonologist is. And I believe you are probably one of the better experts I've ever talked to that said it, because you've done it the correct way, which is pulling out some text and reading it. So in your own words, how would you define demonology as it means to you, Bishop?
Well, first of all, I serve as the exorcist for the church. And as of today, I performed 30 exorcisms in 20 years. Now, I'm talking about exorcism on people who are violently possessed.
Sure.
Not people who are falling out on the ground and flailing around like a fish out of water and doing it for attention. People who are legitimately possessed. So I performed 30 exorcisms on solemn rite of exorcism. We'll talk about the difference between the two. But yeah, I was on Ghost Adventures, the Bobby Mackey's episodes, and then it just kind of exploded. And I always tell people, well, by the very office, an exorcist is a demonologist by their very office. However, a demonologist is not an exorcist. And I always, for 20 years, I've been telling people this: demonology has nothing to do with the paranormal. Demonology is not paranormal.
No, it's not.
Demonology is theological. And when people need to get that straight, it has nothing to do with the paranormal. If you don't understand that demonology is theological, you got to deal with angelology. You have to deal with even philosophy to a point, because you have to use logic, especially when you're taking on demonic cases. Otherwise, you think everything is demonic, and it's just simply not. So I stressed for 20 years, I've been teaching, stop placing demonology within the paranormal community, because it's not. And not that I love the paranormal community. I love the paranormal. I love vampires and werewolves and Bigfoot, and that's all great. But demonology has nothing to do with that. And so what's happening is there are people who are saying, well, I'm bored. I'm going to be a demonologist. I'm call myself a demonologist. And then I go to their social media pages, and it's all about them. It's all about their performances or their appearances, and I'm thinking, where is God on your Facebook? Where does God even exist on your Facebook? Because the only thing that I see is ego. I see no God anywhere at all on your page, and you are a demonologist. So that is why so many people in the paranormal community have just messed up the term demonologist to as a tagline to become famous in the community. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people claiming to be demonologists who are performing rituals they have no business performing in the first place. They are laity. And if you are not trained in the rite, then you have no business performing the minor rite of exorcism, let alone the solemn rite of exorcism, if you're a demonologist. A demonologist is a person who has a calling from God to work cases for the clergy. They go in, they investigate, they gather all the evidence, all the information. They present that to validly trained exorcist clergy. And they say, okay, based on my opinion, this is a demonic case, or I don't think it is. And they help and assist the exorcist because we can't keep chasing every single case. We don't have the time. And so I depend on demonologists, religious demonologists who understand that it is a calling. This is a ministry. It is not something you do because you're bored on a Friday night. That is blasphemy.
I would agree. There are lots and lots of texts out there, and we talk about it on the show often. Demonology isn't simply you pick up a book and now you're a demonologist, or you watch a couple of YouTube videos. There's an actual, study involved. And I see that
Sure.
On your website, you talk that you teach a course on it too, correct?
Yeah, I teach basic demonology, angelology, genealogy, and paranormal studies. And so I teach all 4 courses. It's online. You learn at your own pace. And it really does help people. However, it does not train you to be a demonologist. When you are a demonologist, we have individuals in training right now to be religious demonologists for the church. These are individuals who, number one, have no ego. You have no business having ego and being in demonology. Because if you don't understand, ego stands for edging God out. And if your ego is so big that you're using demonology as a tagline to be famous in the paranormal, the demonic is going to eat your lunch. And that's all there's. And not only that, but the demonic is going to toy with you like a cat toys with its prey. And if you, and not only, and go even deeper, if you're using demonologist as a tagline to be famous in the paranormal, then you don't even realize the devil has already beaten you.
That's it's deep. You talk about the 2 different types of exorcisms, or the different types of exorcisms. Would you care going into that?
Sure. Well, first of all, when you're talking about exorcists, we actually see the first mention of exorcism as an office. It comes from Pope Cornelius in 253. And we actually see the first rite that was written in 1614. This is a very ancient ritual. Now, the difference between there's a solemn rite of exorcism and the minor rite of exorcism. The minor rite of exorcism was published by Pope Leo XIII in May 18th, 1890, for the sole purpose of removing demonic entities or malevolent spirit that has infested themselves within a home or building. Now, here's the problem. Here's the difference between the two. The solemn rite is strictly reserved. And it even says in the rubrics, and I didn't write people get mad when I say this, but I didn't write it. The rubrics are the rules that you have to follow in order to go by the solemn rite of exorcism. The solemn rite of exorcism is a list of prayers. Now, there's a litany of saints, and there's other form of prayers. It's a repetitive prayer that you do. This is strictly reserved for someone who is under the stage of possession. Now, this is very serious. This is not playtime. This is not entertainment hour. This is a person has gone through extreme trauma, spiritual, emotional, physical trauma to get to the point of possession. And that the solemn rite is reserved for that type of ritual. The minor rite, again, is reserved for a demonic entity has infested itself within the home, and you perform the minor rite of exorcism. You do not perform an exorcism on a house. That's absurd. Anybody who says that is not trained. There's no such thing as performing an exorcism on a house. That you bless the home. You perform an exorcism on the demonic entity that has infested themselves within the home. There's a big difference between the two. Now, that's not the same thing as a deliverance. So you have the solemn rite. An individual is possessed.
Right.
The minor rite of exorcism is performed on a demonic entity that has infested itself within the home to expel the demonic entity. And then there's a prayer of deliverance. And that's when the person is under the stage of oppression. There are 3 stages. Well, there's a little bit more, but there are 2 types of demonic activity. There's ordinary demonic activity, such as the demonic, let's say you have a weakness for lust. And the demonic will say, well, why don't you, and you're married, and the demonic will push you towards giving your number out to this girl. Just give it, come on, it's okay. And you fall into that temptation. Now, the sin doesn't fall in with the demonic, the sin falls in with you. But the demonic certainly led you to sin. But your free will is the one that chose you to sin. Now, that's ordinary demonic activity. That's when the demonic entices you. and tempts you, and you fall into temptation and you actually fall. That's the ordinary demonic activity. Extraordinary demonic activity is really divided into 4 categories, not 3. So you have demonic infestation. So the demonic has infested itself within the home. You're a paranormal investigator. You go out and you say, I dare you to do something. Come on, if you're so tough, do something. Okay, what you have not done is provoked. You did not provoke. What you have done is invited. And that's a very big difference between provocation and invitation. And in the paranormal community needs to get that straight.
Right.
So if you're pumping your chest up, like I told Zach many years ago in Ghost Adventures on Bobby Mackey's, you don't understand what you're doing. You're inviting. You're not provoking, because you're pumping your chest up and thinking you're tough, and you're saying, "Come on, demon, I dare you to do something." And the demon is literally inches in your face and saying, "Oh, I will. I'll do something when you're lonely, or your wife leaves you, or husband leaves you, and you lose your job, or the ratings are down and you start losing your contract for this, and then I provoke back. And I told Zach, you got to knock it off, because if you don't, you're going to get yourself in trouble. And he did. He got himself in some deep, deep trouble. And he's talked about this. So that's demonic. I'm sorry, what?
That's some fascinating stuff right there. And again, I'm learning a lot here. Too, thanks to you, Bishop. If you're listening live, don't forget 219-845-1100 is the call-in line. 219-845-1100. You know, we on the program, Bob, you remember we had Father Mike in here.
Father Mike Maginoff.
Bishop, there was a case here in Gary, Indiana, with a home, the occupants in the home. There was some possession going on.
The Zach Bagans Gary Demon House story. Are you familiar with that one?
Strange time.
I am.
So we had Father Mike here, and he kind of talked about his first times doing exorcisms and kind of what that was all about. And I know you said you did a number of them since your first time, but can you guys kind of take us back to that time where it's kind of your first case and you're kind of just trying to see what works and what you're trying to do? Take us back to that first time.
Well, the first time I was the assistant, and I had watched the movie The Exorcist and that kind of thing, and you're in the back of your mind, you kind of that's just nonsense, and you focus on your training, you focus on the rituals, you focus on the prayers. I mean, there's already a process that led up to performing the solemn rite of exorcism anyway, and but we were going up the stairs. I remember it was very eerie. It was we went to her room, and it was a complete personality change with her. I mean, 180. And she had a psychological evaluation, but she was doing things that were very, very inexplicable. I mean, superhuman strength, and eyes turning solid black, markings appearing on her body, the screaming in multiple pitches. And so when we got to the home, she kind of, when we walked into the door, we were doing the Litany of Saints, and she just kind of looked at us and just simply, she was sitting up in her bed, and she's just went right back, just slowly looking at us. And it was the strangest thing, because it was like a board that was placed on her back, and it was just so straight. It was the weirdest thing. And she went back and she went into her pillow, and we continued the rite. Her eyes were closed, and there were some convulsions and contortions. And during the rite, I lift the eyelids, and it was solid black. The eyes are solid black. And there's no words to describe the feeling. The only words that I could possibly explain it to you is if you put yourself in a situation that you are prey. You are a rabbit, and you are cornered, and there are 2 or 3 wolves that have cornered you, and you know that the end is about to happen. There's nothing you can do. You're not going to run. You can't, it's not going to happen. It's time. That's the only thing that it felt vulnerable. It felt like I was prey. The eyes were solid black. It was such a black, I could see my reflection. Actually, I could see my reflection in her eyes. Wow. But I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I couldn't talk. The only thing that I felt like was prey. And it was like a cement. There's nothing I could do. Nothing I could say. Nothing. And thankfully the primary was there to pull me back and did a blessing. But we saw the contortion of the body to where it was a V shape. It was it was like, I can't describe it, but her neck and her legs pushed up. They pushed like they were meeting, and her torso was this way, and it was like a V shape. And she mimicked my aunt who had passed away, the voice of my Aunt Mary.
No way. That's horrifying.
And the vocalization occurred. But see, everything that occurred in that exorcism is typical as far as the voice, and you silence the voice so you can continue the rite. Because there's no such thing as having a conversation with the demonic. That's simply stupid. That's absurd. There's nothing the demonic is going to tell you that you need to know other than its name and when it's leaving. That's it. There's nothing else. You don't have a conversation with the demonic. So anybody who sits and have a conversation with the demonic, it's just, you're going to find yourself in some big trouble. And so because the rite doesn't call for having a conversation, because you are forcing the name, you are forcing its time of departure. You see, when you're under the stage of oppression, there's, like I said, under extraordinary demonic activity, there's demonic infestation, then there's demonic oppression. And that's when the demonic begins to interact with you physically, biting you, scratching you, pinching you, really making you very sleep deprived to the point where you are past sleep deprivation. Your autoimmune is compromised. You are in serious trouble here. You are at such a weakened state you can't fight anymore. At the same time, there's demonic obsession, where it's trying to attack your intellect. So you begin to see things and you begin to hear things. This is what Annalise Michel and Emily Rose talked about, ghastly figures. She would actually see them. And so it would break down the intellect and will of the person to the point where the person can no longer fight. So they're just physically and emotionally at a point they're drained. There's nothing left. Then the demonic has the possession of the body. And so that is where we have to step in and help. But you have to remember that the body has undergone a lot of trauma that led up to possession. That's why I always have someone, always, in all 30 exorcisms, I've always had someone medically trained who's monitoring the vitals, who knows what to look for if the body is going to stroke or to heart attack. This is serious stuff. And people playing around with this, they're going to find themselves in big trouble if they keep doing this.
Bishop, I got a couple questions for you. The first one's relating to you confronting your first demonic entity in your first exorcism, and it mimics the voice of your passed away aunt. How did that make you feel at that time? Because I mean, you study these things, you learn these things, and you think you're prepared, but something like that's gotta, even confronting it like right in front of you, that's gotta take you back, right? Or were you like prepared for something like that to happen?
Well, you know that it can happen, but when it does happen, that's when it kind of throws you off. These are parlor tricks,
right?
So even the levitation or the markings of the body or the eyes or the vocalization, these are all parlor tricks to try to force the exorcist to stop. Because during the solemn rite of exorcism, the demonic's intellect and will and the exorcist's intellect and will are at battle. And one is going to win, one is going to lose. And the demonic is going to use everything that it can to cause the activity to stop, the rite to stop. And this is why we always have, before we perform the solemn rite of exorcism, we have the Eucharist, we celebrate the Eucharist, and of course we have sacrament of reconciliation, because the demonic does have the ability of what's called retrocognition. Now, retrocognition is the ability to know your past transgressions. They cannot read your mind. What it is the reason is they know your sins because they're the ones that led you through that sin through ordinary demonic activity.
Right.
And so therefore, they already have the access of you sinning through demonic influence. And so therefore, it's not the ability to read your mind. It's the ability to know what they've caused you to do. Ultimately, the sin falls on the person, not on the demonic.
My second question is the vetting process. So we've had conversations with Jewish rabbi, we've had conversations with Roman Catholic priest about when do you step in? When do you look at a case and you say, oh, this absolutely needs my attention? Can we go through the process in your process of when do you step in? When do you feel like there's an actual demonic entity that you need to cast out versus, let's say, squirrels in the wall. That's my go-to answer always, you know.
Well, see, now keep in mind, when you're talking about, first of all, I do not perform exorcism on command. Now, I have right now, this is just a couple of days. You guys can't really see it, but it's 9,000.
Oh,
9,570 in 3 days. Emails. I have 12,000 messages on TikTok and 800 messages on Facebook. Now, a lot of these people, and that's ministry. That's ministry for people who are asking for deliverance. Possession is rare. It is not rampant that people think that people are running around being possessed. I have not seen an increase in possession. And I have almost 10,000 emails. I mean, I go through as many as I can. I have seen an increase in demonic infestation, and I would say even demonic attachment, but I have not seen an increase in demonic possession. So I do not perform exorcism on command. That's number one.
Sure.
And number two, it's non-negotiable. I require a psychological evaluation. And the reason being, I find it very troubling and concerning that anyone would perform an exorcism on anybody without having one, because if a person suffers from dissociative identity disorder and you perform an exorcism on them, you can create another personality. You can create another identity. Not only that, if a person is paranoid schizophrenic, you can put them in a manic state and they can commit suicide. So there are things that we have to rule out. But not only that, but keep in mind, people always ask, well, how do you know if it's mental illness versus if someone is violently possessed? There's no guessing involved, because a demonic will have this individual who is possessed. The demonic will have knowledge of future events and hidden things. They will have superhuman strength. They will speak in unknown or strange languages. They can levitate. The smells are often omitted. That's quite vulgar reaction, violent reaction to sacred items. Again, there's a term called prognostication, and prognostication is the ability to provide information about people they don't even know. They can tell you the people that you know. Oh yeah, you know your Aunt Jane. She just cheated. Well, they don't even know your Aunt Jane, but yet they can tell you that Aunt Jane cheated. And again, to try to throw you off, to try to intimidate you. And again, retrocognition, knowing the sins of certainly the priest or the exorcist or anybody else who's in there who has not gone through confession. So these are all things that we clearly can determine that has nothing to do with mental illness. I mean, when someone is levitating, that's not mental illness. When they have prognostication or retrocognition, that's not mental illness. So there are things that people will clearly do through the demonic possession that we can rule out. Okay, that's clearly not mental illness. But still, I don't care if I see someone levitate 5 feet in front of me. I'm still going to be requiring a psychological evaluation because I'm not a psychiatrist. And although that person may indeed be dealing with demonic possession, there could also be dealing with a mental illness. So how do I approach this? And that's a very thin line.
Right.
And I have to speak to a psychiatrist and say, okay, now look, you saw the person levitate. I saw the person levitate. So what do we do? How are we going to fix this problem without doing any type of damage? Now, but here's the answer to the question.
Sure.
When the person is possessed, they have no knowledge of that possession. It goes into an amnesia state. It's almost like it's not co-conscious. It's completely subconscious. They are no longer in the conscious state. Every case that I read, especially in the Roman Church, every person said they have no memory of the possession at all. None. They have the memory that led up to the possession, but they have no memory of the actual possession itself. So therefore, you're not doing damage to the psyche of the brain, to the individual, because the person has no consciousness of it in the first place.
That I would say that's a good process then. Let's shift focus a little bit, because outside of being, the superhero exorcist that you are, you also have a interest in the paranormal, and I'm getting some messages from a mutual person of ours, Elliot and Natalie ACG from ACG Paranormal. So I know you have like a mutual interest in the world of the paranormal investigation on top of, demonology exorcism. You want to talk a little bit about your background and maybe a paranormal investigation, or just the enjoyment of a good ghost story versus, demonic activity?
Well, I've always loved the paranormal. I mean, the paranormal is something that I'm passionate about. When you're talking about anything related to the paranormal, the ghost, spirit, again, we get into UFOs or the Bigfoot or vampires or werewolves, things of this nature. I've always enjoyed that because it is the unknown. And for me, I always want to try to figure it out. I'm that type of person that if there is a mystery, I want to know what it is. For example, I went to a case, a family had contacted me about 20 years ago. No one even knew this cemetery existed. I talk about it all the time. Nobody knew in the paranormal. It's an old cemetery in Kentucky. It's abandoned. And a family asked me to come and do a blessing on the property, on this land, because a lot of satanic rituals were being performed there. And they didn't like that, obviously, because one of the family members were obviously buried there. So the city, I think the county still takes care of it, but it's abandoned. It's no longer used as far as, burial plots. And so when I went there, there were 4 of us. And the very first time we went there, we went in the very back in this tree. And it's a one-way, it's a little old dusty path in and dusty path out. And there's a horseshoe fence around us. And there's lots of trees everywhere around this place. And it was in the middle of summer. It was around midnight. Crickets were going crazy. We got to the trees. We got to the back of this one tree that's called the witch's tree. And the trees around the cemetery started swaying back and forth on the very top. I mean, really swaying like there's a tornado in the area. But we felt no wind where we were. The crickets stopped. I mean, it was dead silent. And this is a place that had no lights. It was in the middle of the country. And we saw hundreds of shadow people. Hundreds. They were running. It's like they were darting behind the trees. Bishop David Price was with me as well. And they were just darting behind the trees. But it looked like they were closing in on us. It looked like they were trying to close into the front. So he said, it's time to go. We've done enough. So we left and we were our backs were facing the entrance. And one of the person, they turned around and they put a flashlight on this big tree in the beginning, in the opening. And we heard him shake. And his face was pale as white. We turned around and we all saw it. I don't know what it was. And I think that's what drives me crazy because I can't define it. We all saw it. It was it was like 10 foot. To me, it looked maybe 10 foot tall, massive wingspan. It looked like a gigantic bat. That's the only way to describe this thing. The wings were completely spread out. Eyes were looking right down at us. It looked like it had a bat head. The eyes were solid red, like a fluorescent red. It was so clear we could see the tails, or not the tails, but the claws, the feet. We could see it in the trees. And we knew that if we stepped one foot closer, that was it. It didn't make a noise. It didn't hiss. It didn't anything. We knew that if it had a long torso, almost like a man's torso, obviously very hairy, but we knew that if we had better leave, and we did. And we all described what we saw, and we don't know what it was. I came back home, and I had a little 10-pound dog, and so I took her outside to use the restroom by the time I got home, still thinking about what I saw. And across the street, there's a big field, and there's a bunch of bushes. And I've heard growls before, and I've heard deep, utteral growls even from the demonic. This was a growl and a deep, and I mean when I tell you deep growl and loud, it was like someone put a big bass speaker on my back, turn the bass up and turn it as loud as and I could feel the growl in the chambers of my lungs. I could feel it. And it made the deepest growl. And I said, no. And I didn't have the feeling that it was demonic, because when you're in the presence of a demonic, you don't have to guess. I grabbed Kylie. I said, I'm sorry if you're finished. You're not finished. We're going. So to this day, I don't know what that was. Don't know.
What was it, Bob? Do you know?
Where were you at in Kentucky? You don't have to tell me exactly where.
Yeah, I forgot. We were I was doing a show at that time on a radio, and I said, man, I tell you what, guys, because all hell broke loose. My team went in there. We actually investigated, and we heard growls. As a matter of fact, I have an EVP of a growl, which I can play if you want to hear it.
Absolutely. Because Kentucky's the Appalachia, Kentucky, all that area. There's a lot of old things that go bumping at night out there. You're from Louisville yourself, or in that neck of the woods. There's, the story of the Poplick Monster, which is one of my favorite spooky things that go bumping at night out there. So I mean, there's a lot of things like that out there.
And this is in the country, and so. When we got EVP work and we went out there and investigated, and all hell broke loose. I mean, we heard growls, we had the smells. It was horrible. It was crazy. It was chaos. And we went back on the radio the next day, and I said, guys, this is like the gates of hell.
Right.
And immediately a team member said, that's it. From now on, we're calling this place the Gates of Hell. And that's how the Gates of Hell Cemetery in Kentucky got its name.
Nice.
Because no one even knew this place existed. Here is the EVP that I captured on the Gates of Hell when I said, is there anyone here? Are you friendly? I didn't hear it, but this is what I captured.
Is there anyone here? Are you friendly?
And that is the best EVP that we've ever captured at the Gates of Hell Cemetery.
I got goosebumps there, Bishop. That's from the cloth point of view. I got to ask because this is something probably more concrete than spiritual, or perhaps more cryptid than ghost, or whatever it might be. If you had to take an educated guess, what you were dealing with that night? What would you say you were dealing with?
As far as when we saw that creature?
Yeah, or even in the EVP, what would you say? Like,
the EVP was demonic. I absolutely know 100% when we were present on that night doing the investigation, it was, you do not need a psychic medium to tell you if a demonic entity is present. You will get an overwhelming sensation of oppression. It is intense. The smell of sulfur can occur. That's because Revelation talks about how the demons will be thrown into the lake of sulfur in the end when they're judged. And so that's why many times sulfur is often associated with demonic entities, or a rotten, horrible, this odor. It smells like, I served as a police chaplain. And I unfortunately, I went to a lot of places where people, committed suicide, and it smells very similar to that, to death. And anybody who's ever had that experience, you can't ever get that smell out. You always have it, but that's what it smells like. It's very, very intense. You know that there's a demonic, that your body is saying everything about you everything is saying, get out of there now, run, don't do this anymore. It's time to go. Call it your guardian angel, call it your six, whatever you want to call it. But I think something is telling you need to leave, and because your body clearly feels that negative energy, and but that was the night when we had that growl. It was very intense that evening. Incredible. So there's no question that night, demonic entities are absolutely present in that place. That's why I tell people, stay away from it. Do not go near it. Leave it alone. There's nothing good that's going to come out of it. I don't go there at night. No. There's no reason. I will not, as an exorcist, I will not go there. There's no reason to, because I'm not there performing the minor rite of exorcism, and I have no reason to go there because I already know what's there. But as far as that night of that creature, I don't know, man. People say Mothman. People say all kinds of things. I don't know what it is. But it wasn't demonic. It wasn't.
So it's more concrete, is what you're saying, versus spiritual, right?
Yeah, to me, it felt like that this thing was a protector of an evil protector. I guess the appearance looked evil, but we didn't get the feeling that it was demonic. We just knew that if we stepped closer, then we were on its territory and we were going to get hurt. It was like a guard dog, if you will. You know what I mean? A big, scary guard dog looking thing. As far as the feeling, it's like, we don't go in the yard and you'll be fine. You step closer, you're going to get hurt.
We got a couple chat line questions here. Sometimes the viewers are a little shy. First question comes to us from an anonymous listener who wanted to know, you said you've seen an increase in rise in infestation. They were asking, do you believe that the rise in infestation is due to people's interest, like accelerated interest in the paranormal, messing around with things that they shouldn't be, whatever that might be, because there's a lot of things, right? I won't go into specifics, but people's interest in the paranormal, is that welcoming things to them? We'll start with that question.
1,000,000%. I tell people that if you're going to paranormal investigate, you must understand there are consequences with your actions. And I understand that you want to go there, and sometimes you want to do it for fun, and maybe you've never had a demonic entity attachment. Thank God, maybe you never will, and I hope you don't. But the moment you say, is there anyone here? Can you make a noise? Can you touch me? You have given the invitation of the spirit world to communicate with you, and you cannot filter out the good from the bad. You need to be very, very careful about things like that. Stay away from it, because there are consequences for our actions. And I cannot tell you how many times I get phone calls from paranormal investigators who go out and the home allegedly has demonic activity. They investigate because, that's just, and then all heck break loose in their house. I mean, they're seeing things fly across the room. Their kids are being tormented. People are being scratched, and they're paranormal investigators. I've never experienced this before. I'm like, well, what did you expect to happen?
Right.
I mean, I understand you have the heart to help. I get it. I understand that. But you still have to understand that if you want to help people and if you want to investigate these cases, you need to understand and accept the fact that there are consequences for getting involved. And these are the consequences.
Next question comes to us from another investigator, a friend of mine, Dr. Ben Vanderson, who wants to know specifically about the cemetery and the entity you were dealing with. What is your take on what a cryptid is exactly?
Yeah, see, I mean, when you're talking about cryptozoology, I mean, people talk about Bigfoot.
Right.
And I personally, I guess the scientific terminology would be an unknown species that people are seeing or witnesses. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And there are far too many people. I've been in the paranormal for so long. I've been in paranormal conferences. I teach about demonology and possession. I met people from all walks of life in the paranormal, from Bigfoot enthusiasts to people who were abducted, they say, by UFOs. There are people that are incredibly credible. I mean, they're just very credible. And they talk about what they've seen. I talked to a game warden in Alaska who absolutely swears that he saw a Bigfoot. Now, look, these people, a game warden in Alaska lives in Alaska. He's lived in Alaska all his life, literally from birth. If an Alaskan doesn't know the difference between a moose and a bear, then they probably shouldn't be a game warden for the state of Alaska. I'm just saying.
That's fair.
I mean, really, honest to God, if you don't know the difference between a bear and a moose, then you probably shouldn't be a game warden. This guy spent his entire life in the woods of Alaska. He knows the difference between a bear and an elk or whatever. He knows it. And he's seen it. I mean, he saw the face, the facial features, the bipedal, everything. They have nothing to gain. They have nothing to gain for telling their story, because in their field, they'd be, laughed at, to be honest with you. So they're not selling books. They're not doing any. They're not going on paranormal conferences and doing lectures and making money. They're just telling their story, what they saw. So there's nothing they're benefiting financially from it at all. And so therefore you have to look at their motive, and their motive is they truly saw something. And so there's too many people who have seen these creatures. And I guess that's one of the things that I love about the paranormal, but that's one of the reasons why you're not going to get me out in the woods looking for a Bigfoot that's 800 pounds. I like bears, but I like bears at a distance.
Absolutely.
Because I would say most of the time when you hear the growls and the grunts, you're probably dealing with the big old bear that's ready to have you for a snack. And I don't think I'm going to be outside tracking in the middle of the night on the woods with no gun with me or anything. No. I don't think so.
Part two of that question real quick is, if you're familiar with some of the, I'm just going to use the term supernatural abilities of some of these cryptid stories, and some of these things being like really superpowery. What do you think that is? Demonic in physical form or something from someplace else, or do you not believe in that sort of a thing? Like, I'll just use the Wendigo, for example.
The Wendigo.
Yeah. Do you believe that if it does exist, can it control, the weather or throw its voice into something else? And if that's the case, is it demonic on Earth, like a physical, concrete demon walking around versus spiritual, or do you just not believe in it completely? Just second part of that question.
Well, what many people don't know is my grandmother was a shaman, and she was Cherokee. And you wouldn't know, of course, my blonde hair, but my mom had blonde hair, but on my father's side, it was she's Cherokee. And I had the opportunity to speak to her a lot about this, about her own. She was also Christian, but she truly believed in elementals and absolutely believed in cryptids.
Yeah.
And many times what her viewpoint of cryptids is leave them alone. Leave them alone because they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be harassed. And they're there for the protector of the earth. Leave them be. Because they can be aggressive and territorial. And if they feel threatened, then they can certainly harm you. So she always believed to leave them, but she didn't believe that they were demons or anything of fallen angels, anything. She believed in demons, but she would not classify them as demons. She classified them as spiritual beings, spiritual. She didn't even like the term animals.
Sure.
I remember her firmly believing that leave them alone. Wendigos are very interesting. I have not had the opportunity. I've spoken to several people about Wendigos. I've never experienced a Wendigo. Willie Windwalker Gibson, he's a shaman. He's a great friend of mine. Love Willie. He's been in the paranormal for a very long time. He's had cases of Wendigo. He'd be a great guest, by the way.
Yeah, let's pass that contact information along. Let's get that going. That sounds great.
Yeah, he's highly respected in the field. Been in the field for a very long time. He is a shaman. He's a medium. He's a spiritualist. He really is phenomenal. And he is a UFO abductee, and he is also he's talked about Wendigos. He thinks that Wendigos are the spiritual being as well, but he doesn't necessarily believe that they're demonic in nature. At least I don't think he does.
Oh, sure. Final question, and this is going to lead into the last part of our interview, because Elliot from ACG and Nat from ACG want me to ask you about Bob Mackey's, and I think that's a question on a lot of people's brains. So let's put a pin in that, guys, because we're going to talk about it. Let's talk about your adventures from priesthood to TV superstar, I guess. You get to do these really cool things on the TV, and you've done a lot of really cool appearances. How did you move from cloth? You're still doing that sort of a thing, but how did that transition into TV work?
Well, see, first of all, I happen to be a priest who happens to be an exorcist. I'm not an exorcist who happens to be a priest.
Sure, absolutely.
So the priesthood, I'm deeply in love with the priesthood. I serve as a chaplain for the hospital. So the priesthood for me is number one.
Absolutely.
And this is a ministry that I do. And the reason is it exploded is because there wasn't Catholic clergy helping at the time. In the paranormal community, there was none. And so I decided to go public, and I did, and it just exploded. I mean, it was just the history, all these networks were contacting National Geographic and Travel and all these people were contacting me, and because it was so rare. They finally, Catholic clergy was not only helping the paranormal, but actually loves the paranormal. And so Zach contacted me, and I'm friends with Zach. I'd still talk to Zach. I think Zach is a great guy. There's a lot of people there, there's haters and likers. But I tell you one thing that people don't know about Zach is he is one of the most loving individuals, especially when it comes to animals. He is very, very devout in saving abused animals. And but he likes to provoke. And he is an executive producer. He's the owner and founder of Ghost Adventures, and he has a lot of invitation. And I told him then when he contacted, look, you got to knock it off. If you don't, you're going to need my number. and I gave him my number literally afterwards. And he has used my number on multiple occasions because he has had some serious activity in his home, very serious activity in his home. I won't divulge if I went there.
No, I understand. Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, some very serious, violent activity in his home. So he's had that experience. So, and I did feel I can't talk about. I'm not allowed to.
No, absolutely. I understand.
I want to talk about this so badly, but I did some filming recently in Los Angeles. I'm very, very excited about this filming.
Sure.
Man, I wish I could tell you about it because it is going to be huge. It's and once the executive producer and all that said that once they say, yeah, okay, you can talk about it, we'll, I mean, everything's been greenlit, everything's fine. That's not the issue. It's just gotta keep your mouth shut.
Absolutely. Working on a TV show myself, so I totally understand what you can divulge and what you can't divulge. I get it.
We'll stay in the loop here. Yeah.
Yeah. Count, you got a question?
Yeah, I got a question. You talk about kind of when you start a priesthood and Roman Catholic Church to kind of breaking your way to do your thing. When you were in the Roman Catholic atmosphere with the other priests, did you guys talk? I mean, you said they're kind of just at the moment there was a fascination, but did other priests talk about the paranormal, or was it was things that you shouldn't be talking about the paranormal? What was that experience like? Was there any? Did you find a kinship with any others that had the interest in the paranormal?
Not the paranormal, but theological, the demonology aspects of it. Especially because Christ instituted the ministry in the first place. What that's why a lot of people, when they talk about demonology and they talk about possession, people need to understand that there are 58 Bible verses about exorcisms in Scripture, 58. And so when you refer to exorcism, it is such a deep theological, argument or explanation of angels, what are angels, and fallen angels. And that's one of the things that we did discuss often is our thought process. Well, what are these demons, and why do they fall? And the idea, and here's what's even scarier, I think, especially now, is that there's a lot of people within the paranormal community who have this concept that they can change the origins of demons, that they can change the very nature of demons, that they can somehow change their mind and have the demonic entities see the error of their ways. That is a fallacy. Do not fall into that trap, because I truly believe angels are demonic entities are fallen but unconfined angels. They were in the very presence of God, and yet they still chose to reject him. So why do we think that mortal, sinful human beings that we are, somehow we can change their ego? We can change their mind all about God. No, that's ego, because then they're going to toy with you and they're going to play with you, and then before you know it, you're going to be in there calling Bishop James Long.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Count?
No.
So I could talk about because you have an extensive TV background and a lot of the things you've done on different shows, including Zach's show. Mm-hmm. But let's focus on probably your most popular case, in my opinion, is the Bob Mackey's case.
Yeah.
Because that's, I have a lot of people out when I do conventions and stuff. People are like, have you ever been to Bob Mackey's? No, I've never been to Bob Mackey's. I don't know. Mm-hmm. That I'd have to think about before I walked into. So can you, people who haven't seen the episode, can you give us a quick summary of what it was and then your reaction to it?
Zach came to the church and he said, look, this is the situation, and I have been scratched. And it was a severe scratch. It was clear it was not self-induced. They talked about some EVPs and other things that they've captured. And so I said, okay. And they asked, please come to Bobby Mackey's. Okay. So we went there a couple of times, 2 times before we did the minor rite of exorcism. Because I'm not going to perform the minor rite of exorcism unless I validate myself that there's something there. Well, I knew there was something there as soon as the first time. I mean, as soon as I walked in, you could feel it. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even the upstairs is oppressive, but when you go downstairs, it was not a good feeling. It was a very oppressive, a violent, aggressive feeling. And we did the EVP work. We caught a lot of information. Matter of fact, in one of the sessions, it was so terrible that what came through the EVPs and the items that we were using were very personal. very, very personal and private things about the guys that the public did not know. I mean, they had no clue. And I won't divulge. I mean, it got to the point where it broke Aaron. He was sobbing. I mean, sobbing. They had to stop because he was sobbing uncontrollable. So some of the things that were being said coming through. And again, this goes back to prognostication, retrocognition. So I knew that the demonic was attacking. I knew then that it was breaking. And I told them, I said, guys, if I perform this minor rite of exorcism, I have a couple of requirements. You stay by me, because what's going to happen is you're going to hear the voices. You will hear multiple pitches, multiple voices in different areas. And I know what you're going to do. You're going to go right to the area. Don't do that. If you do, then you're going to be bait. They're using you for bait. Do not do it, no matter what. Okay. And don't interrupt me. When I'm in the minor rite of exorcism, I don't care if there's a growl. I don't care if don't interrupt me while I'm doing the minor rite of exorcism, because this is not something I'm doing for TV. I'm doing this because you've asked me to perform the minor rite of exorcism so people won't get hurt. So I'm not doing it for a television show. You're filming it, fine, but do not interrupt the rite. So I'm continuing the rite. I'm at the well. I'm using the sacramentals of the church, the holy water, and the incense. There is a deep growl in the back room. I heard it. I got even louder because I wanted Zach to stay with me, because I could see him doing this on the corner of my eyes, and I didn't want to be distracted. I wanted to stay focused on the rite, and Zach, zoom, right to the back of the room. Now I am fuming and the demonic is using my anger to try to cause a disruption of the minor rite of exorcism. And he comes back. Did you hear that growl? Did you? His eyes were, there was a change in Zach. After he came back, and his face was pale. I mean, he was clammy. You could clearly see. I mean, there was no, the color of his face, everything was just complete. And I knew, oh God, this is not going to be good. So I go back to the room. I then continue. I perform the blessing there. And Aaron is one of those sweetheart of a guys. If you ever meet Aaron, he wouldn't hurt a fly. He's just one of those guys that just one of the nicest people you will ever meet. And he was filming me here, and he kept doing this, and then going back and looking in the camera, and his facial expression became almost like a disgust, like a pure hatred. I mean, every time he would I could feel like he was getting ready to attack me. It was just that overwhelming. And that is when Zach, his eyes started dilating and things happened, and we had to stop filming. So it was, of course, I'm not going to, again, I won't discuss what we did afterwards, but sure. It was clear that place was a bit too rough for the guys.
So the question is, will you or have you gone back since your last trip there?
No, there's no need to. I don't need to go back to Bobby Mackey's unless Bobby Mackey asks me to perform the minor rite of exorcism. Or it was the funniest thing because a week after the show, after we were there, after the minor rite of exorcism, a team had booked an investigation there. Well, they contacted me and they were angry with me. They were angry. We went there and nothing happened. We could still smell the incense because I use a lot of incense.
Sure.
And nothing happened. I'm like,
what's the point?
That's the point. Right. That's like calling somebody. That's like calling a lifeguard and saying we jumped in the ocean and a great white didn't bite us, you jerk. That's the whole point of it.
Jeez.
But apparently the activity has started over again, from what I've been told. And it would, because when you have the invitation, because I can perform 1 million minor rite of exorcisms on a place, but if the invitation is given again for the demonic to enter, then the activity will increase, and that's how, because you got to have the invitation, and if the invitation is again, then you have desecration of the ground, and it starts a vicious cycle.
So we're not running out of time, but my last question I want to ask you, and this is going to be a fun one. In your repertoire, in all of your adventures and all of your paranormal investigations, exorcisms, or whatever, outside of Bob Mackey's, is there one that stands out to you as maybe your favorite or the most memorable that you've been a part of or you've done, whatever it might be? What's that story that stands out to you outside of Bob Mackey's?
Probably the most memorable was she was 68 years old, and she was suffering from an incubus. When I got involved with her anal and private area had been ripped apart.
Can I interrupt you? What for the people that are uninformed, what is an incubus exactly?
An incubus is a demonic entity that will attack you on a sexual nature. The incubus attacks women. Succubus will attack men, but there is actual no sexual relationship there. It's actually a manipulation of the muscles.
Okay.
And it starts out pleasurable, and then it becomes aggressive. And with her, she would describe them as 3 10-pound bed walkers that would walk towards her. She could feel them, and they would go toward her, and they would hold her down, and they would manipulate the muscles, and it would be very, very violent. So the family asked me to get involved, and I did. And I worked with her for 3 years, and I grew to love her. She had suffered this for 5 years.
That's a long
time. And I grew to deeply, deeply love her. She was like a grandma. I mean, you walked, she just wanted to hug you and feed you, and what did you need? But she went through hell. She stopped driving because she couldn't drive anymore. Because she described it as a plunger being used. It was very aggressive. And so I worked with her for 3 years. The last year of her life, she was delivered from the sexual assaults. She still described the bed walker. She could still feel them, but they wouldn't touch her anymore. And then when she passed away, not because of that, she passed away of natural causes. Her family asked me to, preside at her funeral. That was hard because I grew to love her. And, I am Bishop Long. I'm Bishop Long. I'm a stoic. I'm an exorcist. I'm going to go in there and I keep my emotions focused and keep it in check. And you have to, but I'm also a human being, and I just grew to love her deeply and grew to love her family. And that case really taught me a great deal, because at that one moment I was thinking about giving it up, walking away, because I couldn't fix it. For 3 years I couldn't fix it, and I was doing everything, the book, everything that I read, that I was taught, everything. I couldn't fix it. I thought, well, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I'm just, not the guy for her. Maybe she needs to contact somebody else, and maybe someone more holy, more devout, less sinful. I'm a sinful person like everybody else. And I went to a mentor who was a Benedictine, and I needed this. I needed this so badly. I was really thinking about walking away from her and the case and everything. And I said, I'm doing this. I'm doing the right. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And he said, will you get off the cross and let Jesus have a try? And this is an older Benedictine. I was what? I said, Father, that hurt. He said, the problem with you is you have a Messiah complex. And I thought, my gosh, you just insulted me twice. I'm trying to help this woman. He said, no, you see, that's the problem. Your ego's getting in your way of listening to what I'm telling you. Number one, you're not her savior. Number two, everything that I've heard you say is I. You're doing nothing. You are an instrument that God is using, and that person will be delivered in God's time, not yours. And until you realize that, you have no business being in this ministry. And that was a good slap in the face that I needed. And I needed to be reminded of that, because at that time I was taking it very personal, and the demonic was manipulating me and my emotions, and without me even realizing it. And I needed that medicine of humility. And I was very, very grateful that he did that, because I needed that wake up call, because I just kept doubting, it's not for me, and maybe this is not for me. But I stuck with it after that happened. And that was God's intervention. No question, that was God's intervention of waking me up and saying, hey, you're not in charge, buddy. You're an instrument that I'm using. And until God wills the person delivered, it will be in God's time, not yours. So if it happens 5 years or 10 years, then you continue to do it 5 years or 10 years. And I was at peace when I came to that conclusion.
I'm glad. That's a very, I've interviewed a lot of people on this show. That's what I do for my full time. And that was probably one of the most powerful stories I've ever heard of spiritual warfare. That's impressive, Bishop. I'm moved. So thank you for sharing that with me.
If you ever met her, you would know. She was easy to love. She was very easy to love. And when her family asked me to preside at her funeral, that was hard. Man, that was hard. I had a hard time, keeping my composure and staying focused and staying stoic, because of all the memories and the suffering that she endured. But, at the same time, there's a victory in the end. And the victory in the end is that she was delivered, and she kept her faith. She never, ever, ever, ever doubted God through all this. And I many times in my life, when I start having these frustrations in life, I kind of think about her faith, and what a beautiful example she showed me of what a true saint should be.
Last question, and we're going to do some plugging for you there, Bishop. This is relax a little bit on that one. It's a very powerful story. Dream place that you've never investigated. This is outside of exorcisms. A place for the curiosity paranormal lover in you. Whereas one place on the planet that you've never investigated, but is on your bucket list of some place you would like to investigate in your life.
Dear Lord, there's thousands of, but it would be pretty cool for the historical purpose, the Dracula's castle.
Yeah. Count, we got any extended family over there?
I'll try to dig some up.
Now, Bishop, I really appreciate you coming on. This is great. And I'm getting a lot of people reaching out to me here in the chat box saying, oh, we need to get him back on. And of course, I'd love to get you back on. I can't keep you up all night. Until we can get you back on the show to talk a little bit more, where can people learn more about you, take your classes? You don't have a concrete ministry that you give sermon every week, do you?
No, actually, well, I do a lot of homeless ministry. So I go to homeless camps in Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, and I pass out food and clothes, sleeping bags, and tents.
Bless you for that.
But Monday through Friday, I always have night prayer. The same night prayer I prayed in the seminary, and that's on Spreaker. It's Spreaker.com/show/night prayer. Night prayer is all one word. And that's Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, on Wednesdays and Sundays, I have Bible study, and that's at 8 p.m. Eastern. They can just go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Bishop James Long, Bishop James Long, all one word. It's the only one, meaning clerics. And then Friday is my paranormal show at 7 p.m. And again, facebook.com/Bishop James Long. And then Monday, I do have an open mic show on. But they can go to just bishopjameslong.com.
Excellent. And you teach a couple different courses: the demonology, angelology, genealogy, paranormal studies. You get all of those you find all of those courses on your website as well, correct?
Yeah, they can go to the website there, and if they want to take it, that's great. If they don't, that's fine. And I teach demonology so much as it is, but it funds the ministry. So
Sure.
There's so many people that ask me to come to their home, and I don't ever charge. I've never charged one penny in all my life. In 20 years, I've been doing the paranormal and this ministry. And so people who are in Texas or California or Florida or wherever, and I have to get there. I have to find a way to get there. And so a lot of people make donations. Not a lot, but some people make donations. I might. If you're staying a week, it could cost, up to $1,500 to rent a car and hotel and gas and everything else, easy for a week. And so I might make a couple $100, a month in the ministry. So the donations help, but it's still, we have several families who are desperate for my help right now. And I just can't get to them right now. I just can't.
Count, do you have any extra questions for our lovely guest?
Again, thanks for coming on. And I know I don't know how long you stay up there, Bishop, but I know it's an hour ahead.
That's one of the things I guess I have insomnia. So
perfect.
I literally will. My insomnia is one of those things where I'm up for 3 days straight, literally no sleep for 3 days, and then usually the fourth day I crash for 10, 12 hours.
Well, we're glad we didn't get you on the fourth day here.
No, because I would be out of it. You gave me on the second day, so I'm going to be up. I will not be going to sleep tonight. So.
There you go.
Bishop, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I say this, my fans will tell you. I say this after every one of my interviews that it's probably one of the more moving interviews I've ever had, or this is like the one. I truly believe this is one of the best interviews I've ever had, and I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Well, I appreciate that. It's all because of the good questions and the interviewer.
Oh,
it has nothing to do
shucks.
with the interviewee. I tell you that.
Next time I catch you on TikTok Live, I'd love to come on as a co-person in the second screen for you. Because, man, you're brilliant. I love listening to you talk. It's so great. So thank you.
Yeah, make sure if you on TikTok. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that I don't understand why TikTok has to take them down. I've complained and complained and complained. There's a lot of people who have the fake Bishop James Long TikTok accounts up there. I've complained about them multiple times. TikTok will not remove them. What upsets me is these people are then pretending to be me and then contacting them and saying, hey, look, can you donate $200 for ministry or $300 for ministry? And then people are doing it. So, and I posted it on my official TikTok. I only have one TikTok, and it's Bishop James Long, all one word, no dots, no nothing. Bishop James Long, period, no spaces. There's a lot of followers there. So if you follow any other account that has, less than my follow, just stay away from them because they're fake. And I've been telling people that, but these people still do it. I don't know why.
Well, despite all of that, Bishop, I hope you can get some sleep tonight. I'm gonna pray on it that you can get some sleep. You deserve it.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll send you a message at 4 a.m.
Sounds good. I'll let you know if I have some problems and I need to get your business number then at 4 a.m.
Already.
Count, thank you so much for getting that to happen. Bishop. And Bishop, thank you so much. Count, do you have anything you'd like to close with tonight?
Bob, great time being here once again. Another episode.
I'm happy to be back.
Yes.
And folks, thank you so much for watching and listening to another episode of Bob After Dark. To my mom, I just want to wish you sweet dreams. To Dad, wherever you are in the universe, I hope you're comfortable, happy, and running proud. Tiff, no matter where you are in the world, I hope you have the sweetest dreams into them all. Good night, everybody, and remember the two most important rules of Bob After Dark are, not all who wander are lost, and as above, so below. Until next time.
Memoriam Development.